Joan Collins, please.
Thanks, Ciarán Corley. Taoiseach, this government has been equivocating over extending the eviction ban or not for weeks now, while people who are living on a knife's edge are worrying about are they going to pay their rent, how they're going to pay their rent and their bills, and whether they're going to have a home in the coming months or not. There are calls coming from every sector that deals with housing on the dire need to extend the ban. Threshold have talked about hundreds of people contacting them with regards to eviction. Father Peter McVerry has said we are facing an avalanche of evictions. Your own minister was compelled to bring in the winter eviction ban because he was advised that up to 2,800 people would find themselves on the streets if the ban wasn't brought in November. I cannot tell you the concern and the stress being felt by all the people coming into my constituency office, and I'm sure in every constituency office, who are either facing eviction or worried about facing eviction if this ban is lifted. People are barely keeping their heads above water. A lot of people can't even do that. And there's a real need for this eviction ban to be extended for hundreds and thousands of people to keep them in their homes. I was listening to Nessan Vaughan from St Vincent de Paul this morning, on Morning Ireland this morning, about the sheer numbers of people coming to them over the cost of living crisis, and it's getting more widespread. They're having groups of people who would never have dreamed of having to go to a charity a year ago, contacting them in desperate need of help. If you lift this ban, many people who are already choosing between food and heat will be facing eviction as well. I have an article from Neary who welcomes the one-off payments but talks about how your government's recent cost of living package did far too little to combat the rising rates of poverty and deprivation in some of the most vulnerable groups of people in this country. The deprivation rate in this country stands at 44.3% for those with disabilities, 43.5% for lone parents, 48.6% for unemployed people and 35.6% for renters. Children have a 1 in 5 probability of living in deprivation. There are 3,431 children in homelessness and 1,609 families. The Children's Rights Alliance, as raised yesterday, has said that child homelessness went up by 34% and family homelessness by 44% last year. Things are getting worse for many people, and I want to ask you, Taoiseach, has your government used the opportunity given by the winter eviction ban to put in any real emergency measures to increase the supply of housing to help those without homes or facing evictions? Before the winter eviction ban was introduced, there was no emergency accommodation available in the Dublin Region Homeless Executive. We are in a cost of living crisis, we're in a homelessness crisis, we're in a housing crisis. Is this government going to take away one of the last barriers to potential thousands of people being evicted out of their homes and put us into a potential severe eviction crisis too? So I want to ask you, Taoiseach, what measures have you put in place to provide emergency services for those with termination notices since before November last year and since November last year? How many extra emergency places have been sourced and where from? And what measures in relation to the many people renting who are not on the housing list or on a HAP or RAS will you instruct landlords to contact local authorities as soon as they issue eviction notice, giving the local authority opportunity to buy them, or will you allow that to happen?
Thank you very much, Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. I don't have the exact numbers that you've asked for there, but I'll ask the Minister for Housing to provide them for you if they are available. In relation to the supply of housing, Deputy, we're doing absolutely everything we can to increase the supply of housing for people who need it in Ireland, we are seeing some good results, not enough, but some good results. 30,000 new homes built last year, more than any year in more than a decade. And that doesn't include student accommodation, doesn't include vacant or derelict homes being brought back into use. Roughly 8,000 additional social housing units last year, more than any year since 1975. No government in my lifetime has been more committed to social housing than this one. And then housing of new forms, like cost rental, for example, becoming a reality for the first time as well. And we've also sourced additional emergency accommodation, not just for Irish citizens who need emergency accommodation, about 5,000 or 6,000 of them, but also for people who've come from abroad, people seeking international protection, homeless people from abroad and also people from Ukraine as well. So a huge amount of effort has been put in by the Department of Housing and by the Department of Integration to find as much accommodation as possible. That includes refurbishments, also includes modular housing, and we'll see within weeks the first modular homes being occupied, and I think that is a positive too. In terms of extending the eviction ban, we haven't made a decision on that yet as a government. We will do shortly. We had hoped that the eviction ban would result in a fall in the number of people in emergency accommodation as it did during the pandemic. It didn't. It's continued to rise. That's because there are other factors at play, including things like family breakdown, for example, and also the fact that the travel-related restrictions that were there in the pandemic are now gone. So it didn't have the effect that we'd hoped it had. It can be argued, and I know it will be argued, that had we not done it, it'd be even worse. That may well be the case, but is not certain. And we do have to have regard for other factors, Deputy. First of all, the exit of landlords from the market, which is a big problem. There are fewer rental properties available now than there were a few years ago. We need more, not less. People need to rent. For different reasons at different points in their lives. Therefore, we need more landlords. The exit of landlords from the market, particularly small landlords, is a real problem. We have to make sure that we don't exacerbate that. And we also have to have regard to the fact that there are people who live abroad and are coming home. 30,000 Irish citizens return home every year. They don't all own a house or apartment, but a lot of them do. And I think they should be allowed to move back into the homes that they own.
Taoiseach, at the end of March, we could be facing a situation where over 3,000 people would be facing termination notices. What has your government put in place to provide emergency services for many of those people if the local authority will not buy the house because of structural issues? I've had a family who the council have said they cannot buy the house. This family has one severely affected autistic child who could not face being moved around a homeless system in any way whatsoever. So what measures have you put in place? Have you sourced at least 1,500 emergency places and where from? What measures have you put in place in relation to requesting or setting up a scheme where landlords must contact the local authority to tell them that they're terminating a notice and then offering the local authority to buy the house? What happens to people who are not on HAP or on the housing list or RAS? What help can they be given? Are they going to be just out in the street as well? And are you putting particularly for people in apartments, have you any plan about where they will go if they face eviction in the next 2 or 3 months? So I'm asking you, Taoiseach, if you're going to bring in to not extend the eviction ban, you must come into this House and tell us what services you're providing for these people in relation to, so that they know they've something to fall back on.
Again, please. Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. We have sourced more emergency accommodation. I don't have the exact figures or locations, but I'll ask the Minister for Housing to provide that for you. I think it is important to say that while the number of people who are in state-provided emergency accommodation is at an all-time high, the number of people that we're taking out of homelessness into secure housing is also at an all-time high. The difficulty that we have, and it's a big difficulty, is that people are becoming homeless faster than we can provide homes for them. But we are providing homes for them, and there is a churn. I think it's important that we be aware of that. And we are very much saying to local authorities that the money is there for you to buy homes. If a landlord is selling up, and the tenant is a social housing tenant, or the tenant of an affordable housing body, that the option is there for the local authority to purchase that property and to keep it in the rental market.